Excuse me, thank you very much, thank you. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I now invite Lord Hannan to come up onto the stage, please? Ladies and gentlemen, can we have a warm welcome for Lord Hannan, who's now going to address you all. Over to you, Lord Hannan.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, and thank you for the support from the young Chagossians here. It's lovely to have people here of all ages. My name is Daniel Hannan. I am a Conservative member of the House of Lords, and I used to be the member of the European Parliament for South East England. So anyone here from Crawley? Anyone here from Surrey or Sussex? If you were, I was your representative. Maybe you voted for me. Maybe you voted for the other guys. The key thing is that you had the chance to vote. And that's what I want to talk about tonight. We cannot make decisions about you without you. The precondition of any settlement should be the self-determination and rights of people of Chagossian heritage. The Chagossians here will know the history, but for people not from the islands, let me just run through a couple of the facts. The Chagos Islands were uninhabited until 1783. The French then settled them. They were seized in the Napoleonic Wars, taken from France in 1810, ceded in 1814. Nobody disputed British sovereignty at that time, and indeed, long after the independence of Mauritius, it was a non-issue. It was only much later that Mauritian government began to take an interest. You'll have got from that potted history that Mauritius never exercised sovereignty over what is now the British Indian Ocean Territory. But for the avoidance of doubt, the United Kingdom did a full and final deal with the Mauritian government in the 1960s. Mauritius accepted £3 million, the then immense sum of £3 million, to renounce all its claims. And the then Prime Minister, the first post-independence Prime Minister of Mauritius, Cecilio Ramagulam, said, "These are islands which we don't know, they are far away and we don't visit them." He was very happy to do the deal. And by the way, for the avoidance of any doubt, Mauritius was then paid a second time, the still pretty huge sum in those days, of £650,000 in 1972 for the resettlement of Chagossian people. In other words, Mauritius, having been paid twice to renounce its claim, having done so and having had that agreed by all sides, now wants to be paid to take the islands off us. And incredibly, Such is the cultural cringe of this government. Such is their readiness to see every question in decolonised terms that they are prepared to pay for the privilege of abandoning territory. The Labour Party, which came in promising growth, is in fact delivering shrinkage, literal geographical shrinkage, and political or moral shrinkage. And what does Mauritius argue? Next to all of the history of continuous British supremacy, what's their claim? Well, they say, well, the islands were administratively part of the same territory during British colonial rule. But hang on, wait, is that a principle now? Is that a thing? Because if we are to extend the principle that anywhere once administered from somewhere else can't be separated from it, then St. Kitts would administer Anguilla, and Jamaica would have the Seychelles, and India would have Burma, and so on and so on. This is a nonsensical argument, pushed through for purely political reasons and accepted shamefully here by a government that should have known better. My friends, I would like the current dispute to be the beginning of a revival of life in an inhabited archipelago. We now all seem to have conceded that there is going to be some settlement of the outer islands. Mauritius is making no bones about the fact that they want to have their people settle the islands, that they want to end the maritime zone, they want to fish there commercially, they want to open hotels and all the rest of it. And indeed, the newly elected government of Mauritius has already said that they don't even accept the previous government having given away the lease on the base. So the whole justification for doing it from a British point of view has vanished in smoke. Well, if we are able to settle some of the outer atolls, then we can do it under British rule, if that is what the population from the islands prefers. I had the great honour of visiting the Falkland Islands for the first time in my life in 2022. And if you speak to any Falkland Islander who is old enough to remember, they will all tell you that in the long run, the best thing that happened to their islands was the invasion and the war. Because from that came the economic revival and the development that has continued to this day and has left Falkland Islanders with a much higher income per head than people in the British Islands. Why? Because once the dispute had happened, we were able to invest in infrastructure. We were able to invest in fisheries around the island, but above all, we were able to establish a regular airlift. If you're a Falkland Islander, you can buy yourself passage on the RAF flight that goes every week from Oxfordshire to the RAF base. Now, why couldn't we look at doing something similar in the British Indian Ocean Territory? Why indeed, if you look at a map, the northernmost parts of the archipelago are very close to parts of the Maldives. Why not establish a sea route link and start developing the outer parts of the atolls for tourism? All of these things can now happen because we've established the principle that normal life can take place other than on Chagossian itself. In other words, it should be perfectly possible, as in the Falkland Islands, to maintain a secure base while allowing civilian settlement elsewhere outside the base area. But ultimately, that shouldn't be my decision, and it shouldn't be David Lammy's decision, and it shouldn't be the decision of the Mauritian government. It should be the decision of the people most invested, the people who either grew up in the islands or have Chagossian heritage. So I would like to make any final deal subject to a consultative referendum of the Chagossian population. Now, you may say that it's not an easy thing to organise. People are dispersed. Some of you are in different parts of the UK. There are Chagossian populations in Mauritius, in the Seychelles, and in other parts of the world. But you know what? With modern technology, that is not a deal breaker. I am voting this week in an election as to who should be the Chancellor of Oxford University. Right? There are people eligible to vote in that election. Any graduate can do it on every continent of the planet. And yet, they still are technically capable of doing it. You establish that you have the right to vote, and then you get given the right to vote online. Now, if Oxford University can do that, I refuse to believe that the British state is incapable of organising an online consultative referendum of people of Chagossian origin. And then you decide. The wider population can decide. Is this a resettlement that you would like to happen under British sovereignty as at present? Or would you rather live under the sovereignty of another country? And either way, people can accept the result because it will be a clear democratic vote. By the way, I'm conscious that just by saying what I'm saying, if one of you stood up here and said the same thing, you could technically under Mauritian law be sentenced to 10 years in prison for having disputed Mauritian sovereignty over part of their territory. I look at that and I think we're really not the bad guys here. Right? There must be a way of establishing a just outcome on the basis of freedom and justice and democracy. I'll leave you with this thought. The king wants no unwilling subjects. But one of the remarkable things, maybe unique things, about the British colonial moment was that it ended overwhelmingly peacefully. The British Empire had a self-dissolving quality. With one or two exceptions, there were some tragic exceptions, but in the vast majority of cases, people were were brought to independence without a shot being fired in anger. And that works both ways. Self-determination means exactly that you can determine for yourself whether to be independent or whether you want to carry on being part of another country's jurisdiction. Whichever way you decide, that should be treated as final and binding. I hope that we can move an amendment to the legislation to ensure that nothing would happen without the explicit approval of Chagossians in a consultative vote. And I hope that we will maintain this extraordinary archipelago with a combined oceanic territory larger than India, because I think we've done great things together. But in any event, it's your call and yours is the final decision. Our great song throughout has been democracy, and we haven't stopped singing it yet. Thank you all, and good luck.
Oh, it's me again. Thank you very much, Dan Hannan. That was fantastic. And we now move on. It is my pleasure now to introduce to the stage. Can we all have a very warm welcome to Maxwell Evnor from Chagos Voices. Maxwell, over to you.